Attendance, we're going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 1:02 p.m. First item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the previous meetings, July 10th and August 14th. If you remember last meeting we had on the 14th, I failed to put approval of the minutes on the agenda from the previous meeting, so we do need to approve both meeting minutes from those meetings. They should have been in your seat. If you'll review them, let us know if there's any revisions that need to be made. If not, if I could get a motion for approval.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes for both meetings as typed.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes for approval of the minutes. Item 3 is providing the results of a subcommittee meeting held on September 25th, specifically for the discipline items, that section of the agreement. There were initially some recommendations sent over to Brandon, and Brandon, you can jump in anytime. Brandon made some revisions based on our meeting. You all reviewed those, made some recommendations as well on that, and then we had a subcommittee meeting on the 25th. We had discussion, I think, on every section that had been proposed by both your team and the city's team. That was resent out on Friday of last week, I believe. And there was one response. So we can go through that response if you'd like. If you believe there's still some work that needs to be done as far as a subcommittee is concerned, we can do that as well. I didn't get a chance to discuss that with you prior to this meeting, so we can have that discussion here. We can also review each section if you'd like. We can caucus.
I guess maybe I'll start, but Jeremy, the last response I got from the revisions, it seems to me maybe we're farther apart than we thought we were at the subcommittee meeting. So at least what I think maybe we are in agreement on is the officer in chief's ability to agree to use vacation time for the higher levels of discipline, I think that'd be a win for both sides, but I don't know how y'all feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, because there's quite a few different asks in the disciplinary language that you put forth. We definitely don't want to give up the ability to have a hearing examiner unless we're getting something for that.
Okay.
And, you know, like
On either I'm going to use, well, I guess I need to use hours. The 40 hours or less, or the 41 to 120, just keep it as is hearings examiner or commission.
I mean, that's kind of our, without getting something back, whether that's in discipline or, I know budget's kind of set and already, so the financials are kind of penciled in the way they are. It's just one of those things where it's like, what would we be getting back for that?
You say the budget was set, but correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there just an additional $100,000 reallocated? So I wouldn't use the word set. Is that accurate, that $100,000 was just reallocated for a special project by the chief?
$100,000 was, the transfer out from the water fund to the general fund was increased as a one-time transfer.
And my understanding is that's to fund essentially an administrative assistant for the chief of police?
No, sir, that's to fund the Lake Patrol Unit that operates and protects our waterways. Currently, the cost of that service is $670,000 a year, and it's only being funded at a lower level of $255,000. So we're trying to get that up to where it's fully covered by the water fund.
So am I mistaken that the chief is creating a new position for basically a personal assistant?
I'm not sure what the exact position is. I think it is an admin assistant position. It's currently funded at a part-time level, and he was requesting to change the part-time position to a full-time position.
Gotcha, okay. So my point is that the budget isn't actually set because there's changes that are still going on. And $100,000 was pretty close to what would have taken care of our stipends if my rough math is correct.
But the water fund that funded this additional $100,000 would not be an available funding source for something like that.
I understand that. And then that goes back to our first meeting when we talked about the millions that are in unassigned funds that the city has. The point being, the city is making it clear where priorities are, and properly funding the San Angelo police officers doesn't seem to be one of those priorities. The city gave us a take it or leave it, 5%, figure out what you're going to do with it proposal, and now they're pushing back on disciplinary language to protect these officers. And some of these revisions are trying to strip away civil service protections that the voters of San Angelo gave these police officers. So I'm struggling to believe that the city is bargaining in good faith at this point, which I understand, meet and confer, there is no obligation. But it definitely feels like we're lacking some good faith on the city side of the table at this point.
I think so the $100,000 gets transferred to the police department to cover the salaries of the Lake Division. Well, then what happens to that $100,000 that was already budgeted to cover their salaries? That's kind of the thought process. I understand that it's a different pot of money coming from the water funds and it has to go towards a specific thing. And that's where I think Jeff is trying to point out that at the same time, you know, I think there are things within the disciplinary policy, you know, that Brandon sent, like the suspensions of 41 to 120 hours, being an option. Obviously, in that case, it would be a requirement to be agreed upon by the chief and the officer. And that, I think that was the original language I sent you, was our proposal. But if the chief doesn't allow the officer to take that, or no agreement is made, giving up the right to a hearing examiner is a big thing, because frankly, the chief could go, I'm never using that, but I just got the fact that you can't use a hearing examiner taken away, which the Civil Service Commission's picked by city manager. One of them's a city employee, which I'm frankly not sure how that's appropriate, but ultimately, it's an option for the chief first, right? And so it's not necessarily an officer benefit. It gives the administration more choice, which is good, because there may be circumstances where 120 hours is a warranted suspension, and nope, you're going to take every bit of it, and yeah, you can still appeal. And so I think we're in agreement on that part of it, just not about removing the hearing examiner from it. If that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think removing the hearings examiner dealt with other provisions that maybe we're not gonna agree to, so I don't think we're necessarily opposed to leaving that in if all we can get to is, this alternative discipline provision, so.
Well, on that same note, I'm going to hop in and reflect something Lieutenant Kennedy said. If we go to section 11 about the supervisory passing, again, it would be hard to bargain against taking out a hearing examiner or a commission hearing when it's just that this happened, this is what happened, and we're going to get away. When one of the purposes of civil service was to have a neutral third party provide a ruling for both sides.
Yeah.
And I think part of bargaining against what the law has as natural part of due process would also be difficult along the same lines as what we just discussed.
But, so, this provision kind of started off from Jeff's initial proposal, which I think was different from the second one y'all sent, which I took y'all were trying to limit the amount of time that the chief could consider certain items for bypass. And so, yes, it's structured as a benefit as far as the appeal process goes, but it's also, I think, protecting officers to ensure that those things wouldn't be considered after a certain period of time, whatever time that may be. I mean, I think we put in here 2 years, but, I mean, that's up for negotiation too.
Well, my stance is just I don't want to bargain away the ability to have a neutral third party look at something. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's kind of the central part, because like I said, as part of due process, that was one of the provisions in the local government code, is having that. So the view is taking that away would be difficult.
Okay.
I think we kind of have the same opinion on section 4 for suspensions, 120 to 720 hour, or 121 to 720 hours. We don't have an issue on that.
Okay.
Section.
Yeah, and we left that hearings examiner and commission,
Yeah.
so.
And we don't have an issue with the alternative discipline by agreement section either.
Okay.
Those are all three of those can benefit an officer if the chief allows it. I mean, that's what but we see the benefits from the association's standpoint of giving the chief more options is helpful in a lot of cases.
But
And
you also,
allowing-
I mean, there
and
is
allowing
some-
them to use vacation and sick days, or not sick days, vacation and holidays, if allowed, is a benefit to the officer.
Okay. All right, so, I mean, those are the provisions that I saw we had the common ground on. I don't know, like, if we took out striking the hearings examiners on those two section, I guess, section 2 and section 3, it sounds like we're happy with that, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
And then, so that, for the remainder, do you think we're just too far apart and forego the rest of it, or what do y'all want to do?
We'd request a caucus.
Okay. We will caucus at 1:19.
Okay. I think we can go, I don't think it would take too long to go through, and I think there's still some other things that we agree on, just outright. And I think there's other things that we don't agree on, and we, at least at this time, might not make it on either way, as far as those things. So going through the second section 5, which is struck out of the authority of the hearing examiner.
Yeah, I think we agreed to,
Yeah, we're not gonna give up the punishment phase, so to speak.
yeah,
And then our request that any loss of privileges based on discipline be, in the spirit of transparency, be put in place at the time of discipline. You'd marked that one out. Is there any change to that? Okay.
no.
I don't think 6 is necessary, since we,
Oh, yeah, if we're striking the hearings examiner, then that, those
Yeah.
red lines in that wouldn't be, but the remainder of that provision is fine.
getting rid of the last little sentence there, is that what,
Yeah,
it's the express intention, that line? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, that's
Okay.
the line.
And then section 7 and 8 being appeal procedures and procedures for hearings. Do we have any issues there?
I don't think so.
Okay. The submission of briefs in lieu of a hearing, if both parties agree, we don't have an issue with that at all.
Okay,
I think where we're gonna have issues is the leave without pay after indefinite suspension, and section 11, the consideration of suspension and making promotional appointments, because that can already be taken into account. I mean, it just has to be provided to the Civil Service Commission. The probationary period, the license revocation section, and all of those without some sort of carrot that hasn't been presented at this point, we'd have to just say, we can't agree to those.
Okay.
Which gets us to the access to the internal affairs file, which I think was a request so that it's clarified when it's, so that we don't have an issue like we had it.
Yeah, the issue is where we have one incident that may involve multiple officers, and it's so intertwined that their
Yep.
G files are intertwined. It's not fair to deny some of those records to the appealing officer, but at the same time, the city wants to ensure that those records are remaining confidential as to other officers.
Right.
And so we were also concerned, the Civil Service Commission could enter a protective order, but actually enforcing that may be problematic. So at least this would be a contract issue if, the appealing officer turned those records over, there would be a breach of contract claim under this provision in my mind, so.
Yeah, I don't think we have an issue with that. That just kind of clarifies a procedural thing.
Right.
And that way, nobody gets in trouble for it, either way.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were thinking.
Okay. And then under the new article, I don't think we didn't have really any issues until y'all actually were the ones that with things you couldn't, at least at this point, agree to.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest provisions on here that we weren't agreeable to is, I think it's section, and we have some other changes in here that if we
Right.
get to a point we'd want. But
Yeah.
I think the biggest issues were providing all the records to an officer before a statement, mainly due to the concern that if we failed to turn over a photo, is that, denying them right to fight this process, and is it going to be brought up in an appeal hearing? And
Well, and from our standpoint, that's where the section later on kind of covers that, where the hearing examiner or the Civil Service Commission can go, okay, well, you gave the officer 43 photos, and there was this other photo that matches 2 others, but is different. And so it's
I
one
guess
of those.
our point is no matter what it is, that's going to be argued every time in those appeals, and it's going to be an issue because any lawyer is going to bring that up.
It'll be, but that's where that section of Civil Service Commissioner, hearing examiner, and any disciplinary appeal, if it substantially impaired the officer's ability to defend against the allegations.
Right.
They have to determine, okay, did it significantly impair that ability? Because if it did, that's not very transparent.
I guess that's my point, is they're going to have to be considering that in every single one, because anytime we miss any sliver of evidence that we didn't show the officer, that's going to be brought up and be at issue in the appeal.
But without that protection, there can be an oops, we forgot to turn that over, sorry, and there's no recourse.
Well, there's not that protection right now. I mean, I think that's what we're,
That's the
Negotiating.
point. That's exactly the point. The officers deserve that protection.
well, then the legislature can give them that protection, but they haven't been given that currently, so.
Yeah, exactly. The city doesn't have any inclination to afford these officers
No, I think
rights
it
or
does. I
privileges.
think the chief is already putting a lot of these things into practice, which I think you guys have acknowledged. And he's doing that without it being in the agreement, and he's working on policies for it. And he's doing it without having those written policies in place. I mean, he's affording these things because he thinks
That's
it's
great.
important.
The chief gets a gold star for writing a policy that he can change at a
Well, you're
whim.
complaining of something that isn't actually happening. It's
The
not.
chief won't always be the chief. We're
Well,
not,
he is
we're
right
not
now. We're
bargaining
talking about a
against
one-year
Travis
agreement
Griffin.
right
We're,
now,
we're
so-
bargaining against the city of San Angelo. The city isn't going anywhere. Travis eventually will not be the chief anymore. And who takes his place may not be as benevolent. We're trying to enshrine protections for these officers while we have what seems to be an amicable chief, which, in my opinion, is quickly changing on how amicable chief is.
Well, for the purposes of this agreement, he's going to be the chief in the next year, so. So, I mean, along the same vein, the other big provision was the right to counsel in every interview. I mean, of course, by law, that's already afforded at the disciplinary hearing. And again, the chief has been allowing that in other interviews, so.
So what's the pushback on it being in the contract? If he's doing it anyway,
Because there may be times when it's not appropriate to have.
legal counsel?
interview. Well, yeah, I mean, this is a civil process. Why do other employees of the city, do we get to bring our counsel?
Y'all aren't civil
into-
service employees.
Right, and civil service doesn't require counsel at every interview that the officer
Require,
may be
no.
involved.
The voters of San Angelo afforded these officers the right to meet and confer with the city,
Right, and that's what we're
with
doing.
the understanding that the city would actually bargain and not bring a bunch of take it or leave it to the table. When that's really all we've gotten from the city of San Angelo is a whole lot of take it or leave it.
No, I think we've gone through, I don't know, 5 pages of stuff that we are bargaining on, so I would disagree with that.
Is that the only major issue out of that?
I mean, I think those were the major provisions. I mean, we do
I mean,
have some other.
I think we agreed section 1 was fine, section 2 was fine with the definitions, with the changes.
Right,
Section 3 with the changes, and then I did send back a comment, because the way that you had that, it would count in situations where during an interview, and we don't expect if during the middle of the interview, the officer admits to doing something else that breaks a policy, for the investigator to go, hold on, stop, I've got to make a new complaint and wait another 48 hours to continue talking to you. We have no intention of that.
yeah,
But if they've presented them with a complaint and they wait 48 hours, and during that 48 hours, they discover other things going into that interview with other knowledge from other interviews and other things that they've done, and then not disclosing that ahead of time.
right.
We definitely don't want to set any officer up for inadvertently being accused of untruthfulness, because they don't know what you're talking about, and
Yeah.
they haven't had time to sit and think about it for a minute.
Okay, so we've given the officer the complaint, we're waiting the 48 hours. Within that 48 hours, we discover something else that triggers another complaint. We would give the officer that complaint and wait the 48 hours before doing an initial interview. So it would extend the time, but only when we haven't interviewed the officer.
Yeah, only when
First-
you're, because from my knowledge of those investigations, usually you get notified, say a complaint comes in today, you'll get notified today, and they're gonna talk to everybody else before they talk to you. And so that's gonna be 2 weeks. They're like, hey, we'll call you when we're ready. Cool. And during that 2 week span, or however long span, you know, they pick up, oh, here's another policy violation as we look into this. You know, and it's going to already be more than 48 more hours before they talk to the officer. And they've got these extra complaints essentially in hand. It just seems like
Yeah.
that would not be good practice.
Right, I don't think there's an issue with that. I mean, we may want to shore it up in the language
Yeah.
to make that clear, but I think that would be all right.
Yeah, I think if you change, this section does not prohibit additional complaints from being investigated if they arise during the investigation. No additional 48-hour notice shall be required for the same. If you, somewhere in there, if you specify from the same interview, because we definitely don't think that you need to stop everything and wait 48 more hours before you talk about something that the officer brought up or admitted to.
Right.
Or something like that.
Okay.
I mean, not to mention, they can always waive the 48-hour notice, but we don't want we don't want those investigators to have to wait if
Yeah.
it's in the middle of an interview. We just don't want them finding other things, and I'm not gonna tell this guy because I think I can get him to say he didn't do it. One of those, have you ever? And it's like, well, no, not that I can think of. You did it this time. That's untruthfulness.
Yeah.
I mean, not, once again, I don't think that Castro or Gonzalez would do that, but they're not always gonna be in that position, so.
Okay. Well, I don't think that's an issue, but I mean, I guess when we do our next caucus, or maybe we can come up with some language.
And then B was what, we already talked about, that you had the issue with. And then what's rewritten as B about the statement. It looks B, C, D, the changes to E, F, and G, so the rest of section 3 looks fine.
Okay.
Section 4, I wasn't sure what.
So I found this provision in another city's agreement, and I think the very introductory paragraph, it talks about, you know, access to the records in the former provisions.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was specifically talking about your comment in B, under subsection B, the provisions in 3C above, but limited the officer's statement.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so this is that same language from 3C,
Okay,
but this is saying that because we provided those records, the officer in return is ensuring confidentiality and to prevent retaliation. Well, we have the retaliation part in A,
yep,
but it's not, the confidentiality part is not in here. And so.
okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, 3C just dealt with the officer's statement, not any other records.
So 4 looks fine, 5. Five was fine on our end. I know that was something. It's something that the chief already does, and we definitely appreciate that. we think that's the right thing to do, frankly. And it's one of those things where, you know, that and the buddy officer system that he came up with, you know, our fear with the buddy officer system is there's no, you know, that officer who's assigned or agrees, yeah, I'll watch my friend and make sure that he doesn't go to a real dark place and have mental health problems or, God forbid, suicidal. Again, that's a great thing to have, and it's not in civil service anywhere. The only protection that we want for that is that he can't then be ordered later, and not saying that Chief Griffith would do this, but there may be somebody out there that's like, you know what? That guy knows what really happened because his buddy told him, and I need that information for my investigation. And if it's in policy, it can be changed. If it's in the contract, though, it gives more benefit to both of those officers. One of, hey, I'm not being insubordinate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think we had a problem with the buddy officer.
Yeah. I was just pointing out that that the chief does and the buddy officer, we completely agree with them. And that's why we wanted them enumerated in here. And then again, the section 6, the first section 6, that was that they can consider any violations of this, but only to the extent that it substantially impaired their ability to defend themselves. I mean, I think that way it's not, oh, well, you forgot to cross a T and now the guy can't be disciplined at all. No, we don't, that's not what we're after.
Yeah. I think we were okay with that.
Yeah. And then the second section 6, because we've got some numbering issues, the scheduling of interviews, that was requested by professional standards, so
Yeah.
that they can do it during an officer. They don't have to come in at midnight and interview somebody who works deep nights, and I'm sure the attorneys will appreciate that on not having to come in, so long as they agree to pay the officer overtime.
Yeah. I think we're good on that.
And the contract interpretation dispute resolution procedure, I don't think we have an issue with any of those alterations at all. Did you? Do y'all have any issues with any of those? The contract?
No, I don't think so. I mean, if you are good with the revisions,
So
my main thing on the arbitration is I just want both sides to be able to
Yeah.
agree to that.
Yeah. I mean, there are things in there that y'all said no to, that we, and on the other side that we said no to, that, you know, if there's some other carrot that either side is missing that comes up, I mean, we can bring it back up and say, well, yeah, that's worth X or
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay, so I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, no. I thought there was a section that enumerated how to select a mediator or arbiter, and I don't see it anymore. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on the process and who we were going to find to be a mediator or arbiter.
The arbiter is still in there. It's the very first paragraph under arbitration. I don't think we specified how to select a mediator. Which would probably be more important than how to select an arbiter.
Yeah, I mean, it just says mutually agreed.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to some process for that. I don't know. I mean, would y'all want to do it?
Well, it
The
says
same way as the-
before mutually agreed mediator. That's kind of how it leaves. And then if mediator's not mutually agreed upon, I mean, yeah. I don't think we necessarily need to get any more specific than that.
All right. So, kind of starting over, just for sake of clarity, it seems like to me on the first page regarding the different hours of discipline and using vacation time, we're going to say we're leaving in hearings examiner on both those. We're agreeing to the Section 5 alternative discipline by agreement.
Did y'all not want the section 4, or were you counting that on page?
Oh, no, I was
One.
counting that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the section 5 alternative discipline.
We're gonna strike the second section 5.
Second
strike-
and third.
And the third section 5. Section 6, take out the last red line
Sentence.
of that. Keep section 7, 8, 9. Strike section 10,
10, 11,
11,
12,
12,
13.
13. 14's already struck. Keep section 15.
Yep.
And then as far as the investigation of officer, keep all of this except for in section 3B, strike that section
Yeah, and
and the.
figure out how to fit in under A,
Right.
yeah, that section, that wording.
And then as of right now, I mean, striking the section 5 right counsel, subject to, I guess, unless we come up with something else. Yeah, I think both section 6s were good after that. And then keep all the contract dispute resolution as we have it.
Did we need to come up with some wording for mediation for selection of mediator, or did that not?
I think you're good with that.
No,
yeah.
you're good, okay.
Do we need to caucus on that or move on? Yeah, I mean, I think so.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll call it caucus.
We'll request a caucus if that's okay? Okay. At 2:09. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order at 3:05.
All right, I think we're good with where we left it before the caucus. I'd like to get y'all clean documents, everything, and then the language change that we talked about regarding the 48 hours. So I'll send that over to you, and then I guess with the understanding that all of this could still change based on other parts of the negotiation, I think it's fair, so. Otherwise, I don't have anything else unless you guys do.
Yeah, not on discipline, I think we're good.
Okay. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, approval of the 5% increase to the pay plan. So, In order for that 5% increase to be applied to all the civil service employees as of October 1st, the item needed to be presented to council through a budget amendment item. And Tina can speak more to this if y'all have any questions, but essentially that amount is put in park somewhere in the budget until we finish the negotiation process, in case anything changes with that. Based on my conversation with Jeremy, the application of that as a 5% across the board increase was what was desired. And so we did put that on the agenda for city council yesterday as part of the budget amendment. We will have to get that piece of the contract agreed to at today's meeting so that we can move forward with the second reading of that at the October 21st meeting. If that doesn't occur, then we can remove that from the budget amendment at the second reading, but essentially, though, there might be a delay in when that's applied, since we're still under the current agreement.
Is there a way we can table that until the end of today's discussion, come back to that?
Yes.
Okay, let's just table that
Okay,
for
okay.
just a minute.
So we're going to move on to agenda item number 5, continuation of discussion and possible action on items to be considered for the 2026 meet and confer agreement. There are 2 items, I think, that assuming the 5% increase will be applied to salaries, that we would like to comment on. One is the request made to allow WOW days, United Way days, and vacation to count towards overtime. We are not able to consider that based on the cost. And holidays alone, if that were allowed to count towards regular hours and essentially overtime, we wouldn't be able to sustain that.
On holidays, you said?
Holidays alone.
Because holidays are already counted as time worked.
You are correct.
It's vacation, WOW, and United Way is what we asked for.
For holidays though, right? We discussed.
Vacation days, 2 holidays, and 2.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. It was vacation days that budget let me know that just in that alone, the 15 days, it wouldn't be sustainable. But you are correct, holiday is part of, already counts towards that.
Do you have a dollar amount of what it would cost? Because, I mean, it's only on overtime incurred during weeks that, or for patrol officers, especially during pay periods, because they may take 1 week off and get ordered to work overtime the next week, and it's at straight time because they're on a 2-week pay cycle.
We haven't done any detailed calculations on that yet. Jonathan, would that be doable or?
Jonathan Flores, Budget Manager. We can calculate it based off the vacation days that we've seen as well as additional hours worked for those work periods. That's a difficult analysis because we have to take it 1 week at a time, so it would be pretty time consuming to figure out a detailed number of that, as well as it's not completely indicative of what it would cost us in the future as well.
So the work week, there is 1 work week that's just based on the shifts that's guaranteed overtime. Is that correct? Is that correct?
So originally this came up because the biggest issue is with those that are on the two-week pay cycle. I'm on a 1-week pay cycle now. If I take a vacation day tomorrow and work overtime on Friday, so be it. That's my own scheduling thing, but the biggest issue is for the patrolmen that are on 2-week pay cycles. And I know that currently they're on some mandatory overtime, but they will be, from my understanding from discussions, trying to transition. That was never a forever plan, I don't think, from the chief. It was we're short, we need help. This is a way to staff it.
Okay. So I guess in terms of this meeting, there's some additional questions that I'd like to ask. So if we could bring that back and place it on the agenda, that would be great. The other item is, and we've talked about this one before, the proposal for the payouts, sick leave payouts. And we've mentioned that in theory we're good with considering that. And Michael's going to speak in more detail on that one.
All right. As we understand the proposal, we would modify the current system for leave payouts. And to simplify the explanation, we would pay less for people with fewer years and pay more for people with more years. If the employment challenges are that we're seeing turnover among people with fewer years and we want to incentivize them to stay, that is certainly a method to try to incentivize that behavior. Also, in theory, we think there's a way to make it pay for itself. And we think it has the added benefit for people watching, controlling or their own behavior and coming to work when there's a question about just how bad do they feel, just how sick do they feel. So we think that all of those things, and I'm not in a position to say that we're having an employment issue with turnover among younger people, and we want to incentive, that's for someone else to say. But to the extent that that exists and those benefits associated with cost exist, we think it's a good idea. The question is the specific terms associated with making that happen. We couldn't make the plan pay for itself with the numbers you submitted. And so we'd like to keep working on that and see if we can develop a set of terms that do pay for themselves. And is that all I was going to say? All right. We do think that provides some incentive. We're not sure how strong that is, but certainly from our perspective, a cost-neutral kind of attempt is worth considering. So I think we'd like to keep working on that. And we've asked Jonathan to work on developing a plan that he thinks will pay for itself. One of the other things that we talked about was the possibility that we wouldn't necessarily implement it all at once. We could do that in stages. We haven't figured that out either. Just that we're open to the benefits that the proposal provides. And so we'd like to keep working on what that solution looks like.
I think regardless, we're going to have to have another meeting, if anything, to present final documents for signature. So by the time we meet again, I'm sure we can have something written up to discuss. The other item I'd like to ask for clarification on is the leave pool that was recommended at the last meeting. We had requested that something be drafted in terms of the specifics, and I don't know if y'all brought that today or not, but
I think if we can work towards the sick time buyback changes, we're not gonna need the leave pool,
okay.
kind of thing.
Okay. That is all I had. I don't know if you all want to discuss any of the items.
I did have one question on the sick time buyback. When you ran the numbers, was it not cost neutral? I guess because of the differences in salary of the people leaving and when they leave, or
I'll attempt, Jonathan, you can straighten me out. There's quite a bit of variation from year to year, so you have to make some assumptions. I think the bulk of it was the level at which, the levels that people would be allowed to sell back.
so the number of hours.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have a suggestion for if we have to make an adjustment to that, where you'd like to see the adjustment? One of the things we talked about was getting to a level at 20 years and making that work, and then in a future contract, developing the possibility of something beyond that. That as an example of if we were to compromise. I know that when I ran something a few years back, it had come up, and I don't even remember what the terms are under this proposal, but I just canceled everybody out to 10 years. If you're not here 10 years, you don't get anything. And then gradually stepped it up, and I could make it work at that time based on those numbers. But I don't know what's in here, but if you'll give us some feedback about, or maybe you just want us to develop something and let you look at it.
Well, I'd like to see what y'all come up with. At the same time, mine were the way I based out, what rate to pay people out and whatnot, because it's only at 2/3 rate after your original 720, was based on our historical data for the last 5 years, which obviously is going to be different in the next 5 years, understandably. But there's not really a easy way to calculate it, so I don't envy him having to try and calculate that.
Well, and we think it will modify behavior too. We hope it will
Yeah.
modify behavior.
Yeah.
And that affects the computation.
And I think, for the short-term costs, it would be looking at how many hours people currently have, because I'm sure that there are people in the department that, they've gotten to 1,000 hours and they're like, that's plenty for me because I'm not going to get paid out for that many. And then there's other people that have 2,000, 3,000 hours. It's just, I will point out that in my calculations, it would have been feasible at 75% if it wasn't for one retiree, which was Fincher, who was in an executive position and so just kept accruing sick time and then moved back down. And so we're not obviously going to negotiate for the assistant chiefs and the chief, but he was a lieutenant when he retired, so he would have been paid out under the contract, and that changed it a lot. If that overall number, once you get to 25 to 29 or 30 plus is an issue, yeah, we can look at. I'm not 100% like, this is the way, this is the set of numbers that it has to be. That was just kind of how it fit. And when I was trying to calculate based on the historicals, that's, to me, it fit kind of the fairest way. But obviously, we're both on the same page as far as what the intention is and what we're trying to accomplish. And we want to try to accomplish, I mean, ultimately, it could cost more because we keep people from burning sick time, which is beneficial for everybody, and it would be beneficial for the officers when they retire.
But it costs less in the year they would have taken the sick time.
Right.
Is when you call in sick, we pay him overtime to cover your shift.
Well, we don't, most of the time.
Well, I'm talking about when Officer Tina calls in sick, and they call in Officer Michael to cover her, generally I'm getting overtime. And so it costs the city more in that scenario. Now, if she is incentivized not to
Right.
use that sick time, then we come out ahead.
Yeah.
And
That's
those are the
different.
assumptions that
Yeah.
we're trying to make sure we get as accurate as we can. So, the change in behavior, the increase in hours that somebody's going to have because of that changed behavior.
Right.
How long, would somebody stay versus not having an incentive, those things.
Right.
But yes, you're right. I think we see the benefit of that in both retention, recruitment, and behavior, yes. Okay.
Help us with time frame. When do we want to follow up on that?
I'd like to have something
Do we,
ready for
I
the
mean,
next
is that
meeting, but-
something we should have Jonathan burning up that keyboard for today, or is that something we cover in a future meeting?
I don't know that he can do it today. Yeah. I think it'll have to be a future meeting, but we're prepared to work on it so that we have something to present and discuss at the next meeting.
Given that there's still a whole bunch of things out there, as far as things up in the air, it is our third meeting. I know our original agreement was to not introduce anything new after the third meeting. Obviously, that can all be changed based upon, the rules can be changed based upon mutual agreement. I would ask that since we've got so much that's going to go to the next meeting as far as bringing up something new, I don't really anticipate anything necessarily new, but you never know. We could think of something between now and then that is beneficial for both sides, or y'all could. I would like us to be able to bring up new things at the next meeting as well.
I'll defer to Brandon on that. I'm not opposed.
I'm not opposed to make that change. If everyone's agreeable, I mean.
We can do it today at this meeting without it being on an agenda.
Well, I think that's an additional request.
Okay.
Number 6.
Perfect.
Is that a motion?
Yeah,
When
I'll
we
make
go
a
to
motion.
6, we'll go, not yet. So we'll go to 6 here in a minute. Are we, I guess, finished discussing current things? Those are the only things that I had notes on.
Yeah, that's the only additional item I had, was asking that we could, and I'll make a motion that,
Okay, if y'all are good with 5, we can move on to 6?
oh, yeah.
Yep. Okay. So, agenda item number 6, discussion and possible action on any additional requests. So, we can either move on your motion, or I've got some items to request.
Let's hear y'all out, so.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Okay.
We're ready to hear you.
So I've got 3 additional requests for you. One of them is to add to the agreement 2 deputy chiefs. These 2 deputy chiefs would be appointed positions. We would have to create a new article or a new section for that.
I'm going to ask the obvious questions here. How does the city intend on paying for these positions?
The wording in the agreement would specify that funding needs to be available and identified. So for this particular agreement, if that happens during that time frame, then that's when those positions would be recruited for or appointed. At this point in time, there is no funding for 2 deputy chiefs.
Okay, go ahead and continue. Well, I've got some other questions, but maybe you'll answer them with your other, because you have 3 things.
Yes, I've got 2 others.
Okay.
The second item is an amendment to Article 7, Section 3, to change TCOL certified applicants who are hired as police officers by the SAPD will serve a probationary period of 12 months from the date of swearing in. Currently, it's from the date of hire. And so we'd like to match that with the probationary period for a new police officer. The third item is Article 8, Section 3. We would have to add an additional letter. This would be for part-time officers serving as school resource officers, SROs. We would like for the city manager to have the ability to base their salary on experience, market competitiveness, and there would have to be a component in there about reimbursement from the school district. So typically in an agreement, based on what they agree to reimburse, there'd be, I guess, some consideration for that. The intent with the school resource officers, it's my understanding that that complete cost be recovered or reimbursed by the school district. So there would be no opportunity for a salary to be set that we wouldn't intend to be reimbursed for.
I think the big question we would have on that is that I cannot have, and our officers will not tolerate, a part-time officer potentially making more hourly than the people, the men and women that we currently have working. Like, that's just a big problem, because then you're gonna encourage full-time employees to I can go do something better and then come back and do this on the side and make more money. We can't have, there's gotta be some kind of cap that is in black and white that we can agree to. I do believe the concept of paying a retiree based on their experience, I think that's a good idea, but we do run into the risk of we're paying somebody that's working part-time a higher hourly rate than the current men and women that are serving.
There would be a limit to how many hours they can work, which I think there's a limit now in the agreement for part-time officers. So it would be 30, 32 hours is typically what that limit is weekly. I really don't know how, since this is, the SRO assignment is a seasonal type position, just when schools in session. So, you know, we could put a provision in there in terms of hours, average number of hours for the calendar year, I'm not sure. But there would be a limit to the number of hours. And again, that's typical for part-time positions. I'm not sure if y'all have any other comments or if we need a caucus. It's up to you.
Yes, we'd like to caucus.
Okay. We will call a caucus at 3:32. At 4 o'clock. Any comments or discussion on the 3 additional items?
The probationary period on the second thing, that's fine. I think that was the intention last year, and maybe we just missed the edit.
Okay.
Part-time officers in general, I mean, we don't want them to make more than the officers at their individual level of certification. So, you know, if the base pay moving forward, assuming a 5% increase for a basic peace officer is actually less than what part-timers are paid now. It's $31.60 an hour. All the way up to master peace officers being $41.32 an hour. So, I think that would be the absolute highest, and I think it would have to be based on their certification, because we don't want an officer to be like, well, crap, I can resign and work the school and go over here with this other company that maybe has better benefits than the city, or health insurance, whatever it is. We definitely don't want to lose people in that aspect. And we also know that some of our officers, one, they really enjoy working the schools, and two, they're making good money on their days off working at the schools. I think we just don't want to incentivize people to leave and work part-time 9 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Especially because if you're also wanting to change it to, as long as they're, I don't know what the number is, average of 30 or 32, what it is, before you have to pay benefits and all those things. One of the questions I do have on it, because I really doubt the school is going to want to pay or reimburse for time that they have to be in training, and they're mandatory to go to training 40 hours every 2 years, qualifications every year, use of force every year, best practices stuff. I mean, we're talking 2 to 3 weeks, and there's a cost there that I don't think the school district's going to reimburse for, if I had to guess. I know they don't reimburse our current officers that work there on overtime. So, I mean, that would be a consideration in costs as well, because
You're saying that's built into a or a full-time salary pay system, and with a part-timer, that those built-ins don't exist, and somebody's got to pay for them
Right.
if that officer wants to be paid for that activity.
Right. I mean, if they want to be, and for liability reasons, we may have to require them to be paid for going to training, especially they're at the gun range.
Does that become part of it, is we don't agree to pay for that training and they gotta pay for it on their own?
I mean, I think everything's kind of malleable. We just, there's a lot of things that have come up today that cost money. And in looking at things, holistically, it's like, well,
So basically, these part-time officers, they represent the city of San Angelo. So we're, I guess, as a department and as city leadership, saying, yes, these people represent us and we're good with them working these part-time jobs. But for us to put our stamp on them, it's kind of like what Lieutenant Kennedy has said, like, there are some things that they have to go through, and who's gonna pay for that? Because the school system, I don't think will.
Yeah, like the stipulation of work at school, you've got to go through SRO school to work for the schools. And if we hire somebody who doesn't currently work or currently do it, someone's going to have to foot that too, so.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think the agreements I'm familiar with in terms of SROs, you recover the complete cost of that officer. I don't know if that's currently the case or if some things were omitted.
currently we don't have any part-time SROs though.
Right. I think right now that's something that's being discussed as a part of an amendment to the current contract. Right now, the current contract provides funding for a sergeant position to do the time, to do the scheduling, and then also creates a reimbursement for the time spent on campus. And that's really the limit of the current contract. But I do think that they're currently negotiating adding part-timers to that piece.
And I don't know, Tina, if you have any recommendation in terms of what you would request reimbursement for.
I mean, I think that that training could be built into that agreement if the school district was open to it, and even for the full-time officers that are working for them.
Yeah, I would consider it as a cost to providing that service to the school district. We have to staff those specific SRO sergeants for that specific purpose. I could see it as something that we build into the cost of providing that service to the school district.
Right.
I think our point of view is just we don't want that coming out of funds that are used for training officers or, even salary savings or things like that. In a stance of, well, what else could that be used to benefit the officers? Especially when we're talking about, we were $108,000 short roughly on stipends. And, we've talked about a few things that cost money, and it's like, well, we understand, there's wants other than what we want. And we're not gonna ask for the heaven and the moon, but we do have, we don't want it to take away necessarily from the officers. We want anything part-timers to supplement our officers and maybe take work off of them, which hopefully part-timers would. Would that only apply to part-time SROs, or would that also apply to part-time? Because we can hire part-time police officers to work traffic safety program, or work traffic, or anything the chief wants, really.
The recommendation is for part-time SROs only, primarily because we intend to recover that and be reimbursed.
Is there a maximum number that y'all were going to limit it to or cap it at?
A salary amount? A
No,
maximum?
the number of positions.
I think in the contract right now, it's 12 part-time officers, right? But it doesn't talk about SROs.
I'm not sure what the,
Yeah, the original intent for part-time officers was to supplement our manpower until we became fully staffed. I think the original intent was every time we hired a full-time employee, we lost one part-time until we were fully staffed. I think that was the original intent of the contract. Yes, the whole goal with last year's contract with recruiting improvements and stuff was to try to get our department to full staffing so that we wouldn't be dependent on the part-time.
And in years past, those part-timers were, like Noel said, supplementing, so we had some guys working cases, cold cases, property crime, we had some in the traffic division. That was the original intent. So and I guess the question is SROs gonna be in addition to what's in the contract, or are those gonna be taken and applied to what's in that contract, the current contract?
when they're speaking of the original intent, I think they're talking the previous contract. That was what was originally intended was we have 170 spots and we have 160 filled. Well, we can have 10 part-timers because we're having salary savings of 10 people. And every time you'd hire somebody, you'd lose a part-timer until you're caught up. But
So you're
we
talking
never
about the
got there.
agreement prior to
Yeah.
the current one?
And so when it was brought back, I think we kind of just extrapolated the original intent as the new intent, and maybe intentions have changed. I don't know. If we put 12 in there, then okay. I mean, I don't have an issue with it. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really have a response in terms of whether or not we would cap it. My initial inclination is that it's not going to be in addition to the current 12. As far as indicating the number of SROs, I hate to do that as well. I don't want to tie anybody to a certain number of SROs and take away from the total number of part-time officers that are doing other things either. So I don't think the contract would specify how many SROs.
Okay. It was just a question we had.
Yeah.
On the deputy chief's section,
Real quick before we go to
Sure.
that, on this one in particular, are you all comfortable with us, based on your feedback, coming up with some wording on it and then we discuss it at the next meeting?
yeah, I mean, I think overall we're open to the thought process. I think our big thing, we don't want them to make a higher hourly rate than what the officers are making as their base salary. And even them making the same could be problematic.
And no financial impact.
Right. Yeah, definitely. We wouldn't want the creation of these new positions to take away from potential funding for the full-time officers.
Okay.
Well, and when you think about it too, you think about, okay, well, we've got to get them a vest and we've got to get them a gun and we've got to get them all these uniforms. So
Again,
those would be things.
the agreements that, that I am familiar with, you recover the entire cost, fuel, everything that goes along with that assignment,
Yeah,
so.
we would definitely want to make sure that, because by what? April, May, it's, hey, can we order new? And it's like, we're kind of, I mean, every department's that way, but we're kind of short on funds to get new things in the summer.
Yeah, and, note that this does involve another entity, and so if
Right.
for some reason the school district isn't agreeable to those things, then, we're back to the drawing board, so.
That's all we had on that. On the deputy chief's aspect, where would those positions come from? Would those be created out of officer positions? Would they be, as far as, we have 174 allotted slots. We have 9 lieutenants. We have 27, I think.
28 sergeants.
I think we have 27 now, sergeants. And then however many, 150-ish officers. Would that come from where?
It would be from the lieutenant position, but not additional positions.
So we would go from 9 lieutenant positions to 7 lieutenant positions? And then 2 deputy chiefs? Okay. There's some things that we would need to put in under that section for sure. Our belief is that those positions, and I think from conversations, I think I know the chief's intention, and what we're asking for is not against that, but that those positions, those deputy chiefs, appointees have to come from the lieutenant pool. You can't take a sergeant and make him a deputy chief. You can't take an officer and make him a deputy chief. You can't take a lateral that comes in or somebody that doesn't even work for the department and hire them in as a deputy chief. They have to come from the tested lieutenant positions. And then we also want to definitely set minimums for lieutenant positions, that there is a minimum of 7 lieutenant spots and a minimum of, I think it's 27 sergeants that we currently have, whatever the number is. So that we don't cannibalize any more spots for appointed positions, for sure. Or cannibalize lower field level supervisor spots to make managerial spots. I think in that section, that's really the big requirements, which I don't think are outside of what the chief's intention
I'm looking
is.
at the budget amendment that we took to city council yesterday to set the classification plan. Says 8 police lieutenants, 28 sergeants, 141 officers, just for informational purposes.
Hold on, let me count in my head.
And I think that 8th lieutenant was just added in last year's budget process. It was 7.
There's definitely 9 lieutenants positions. Because we have 4 on patrol, 2 in admin, 1 in narcotics, 1 in training, and 1 in CID. There's 10 with him exacting.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we're way over.
Are you all agreeable for us to put something together as well for that and then bring it back?
I think
For
we're
discussion.
agreeable with that if we can get the 2 things in the disciplinary language that y'all were not agreeable to, about the loss of privileges associated with internal investigations occurring at the time of discipline, and the representation by an attorney at the interviews.
Do you happen to know those section numbers?
The
Okay.
first was the third, section 5,
Third section.
in Article 6.
Loss of privileges, opportunities, or change in assignment associated with internal investigations.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the second one being, under the administrative investigations, section 3, subsection little b, the one that was struck out. Yeah, and then one other thing, when we were talking about the vacation days and counting as days worked, I'm unsure, like citywide, how United Way days are not considered days worked, considering you pay for those. Like you work them, and then you volunteer to give back your money. And then if you take a vacation day, or if you get overtime on a week that you take a United Way day.
Okay, explain that again.
So United Way days are because you either give an hour or 2 hours a month
You've
of
donated
your
a
salary.
portion of your salary.
You're working that time so that you can give that salary. And then when you take your day, you're not considered to have worked. Like I get vacation and WOW days, those are separate, but the United Way, I just, when we were talking about it, I started thinking, well, how is,
So because you've donated that daily amount or hourly amount, you consider that as already worked?
right,
Or because it's paid or
You've worked
donated
it.
or whatever?
yeah. That was just kind of a thought process thing I had, and I think, personally, I think that should be a city thing, not necessarily a contract thing. Just something to think about on that.
Okay. I don't really have a comment, I guess. I don't think of it that way, so, we'd have to discuss. Okay, so, we would want to caucus on some of the items that you brought up. We're on item 6, right, on the agenda? Are there, I guess before we caucus, and in case we have to caucus on anything else at the same time, are there any additional items that you all are interested in bringing up?
I think and this is me, I think I can see the chief's intent with the deputy chiefs. But right now, we're hung up for our members over stipends, right? We asked for stipends, and y'all came to us and said, hey, with the current budget, we don't have money for it. And we were just $108,000 short to have our stipends plus the 5%. And if I'm understanding correctly, with these deputy chief's positions, he has to come up with the funding to fund this. And I'm assuming that is going to be more than the $108,000 that we needed to fund our stipend request. Or what, so I'm just concerned that, if there's money enough to fund these deputy chiefs, because I'm guessing there's something that's going to get cannibalized, that there was money enough to get us our stipends the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, your assumption is correct. The funding needs to be identified, and it currently isn't. Yeah, that's
It
the
also
case.
wouldn't be completely funding both of those positions. I think it would just be the net difference between the two lieutenants that are converted to the deputy chiefs.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell you what that amount is right now. Again, those positions don't currently exist, so where they would be on the pay plan would still have to be developed.
Well, their pay level still exists in ordinance.
The captain, I think there's a captain position in the
It's the
ordinance
same
currently.
thing. I mean, there's only one spot between lieutenant, there's only one level between lieutenant and assistant chief, so it doesn't matter. You could call them, I don't know, you could call them corporal if you wanted to, even though
Correct.
it doesn't,
Yeah.
and it's the same thing.
I haven't looked at the ordinance in a minute, but I believe that the pay plan that was used back when that was written is also pretty different than what we have now. So, you know,
Fair enough.
we would have to take a look at that and compare.
We do actually have one additional thing. We would request contract language that would begin bargaining before a budget has been established by the city.
Contract language for beginning the bargaining process before the budget.
Before budget workshops.
Before budget.
Essentially, the spirit is that we have equal footing. Whenever the department heads are able to attend budget workshops and start, making their requests known to the council, I think it would only be fair that the association has an opportunity to also bring their budget requests at that beginning stage. So the only way to do that is if we were bargaining at that point. So the bargaining team actually has information that they can take back to council during those workshops to form a budget with equal representation of the entire department and not just the department head.
Which would be after December.
Yeah, the budget process starts way too soon for me as it is, but I mean, I'll have to defer to Brandon on that, but I think we would like to caucus on some other things, and we'll discuss that as well. Anything else, I guess, as far as new items? Okay, we'll caucus at 4:28. Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order at 4:59. I'll turn it over to Brandon.
Turn it over to me.
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess I'm addressing on the deputy chief positions as to the disciplinary provisions that you asked for. No to the loss of privileges, we would add in the council provision.
Why is it so adamant that loss of revocation of privileges based on discipline not be given at the time suspension or anything like that is?
We've talked about that at the subcommittee meeting. I mean, that's the chief's ability to regulate the department in multiple ways, and it's a policy function, and it is a privilege, and y'all are looking at it as an entitlement or a right, which it is not. So,
I mean, we're looking at it as privileges that come with seniority, because that's the only requirement for them. Once you get off probation, you can work off-duty overtime. once you get to a certain seniority level and a car becomes available, you get assigned that car and you get to take that car home. Assignments in other divisions are a lot of based on seniority. They're open to anybody that has 2 years or more of experience. All we're asking for there is that if you say, okay, you're gonna get 10 days suspension, and I'm gonna take your car and your off-duty assignments away where you can't work off-duty and take your car away for 90 days. That he can't, we're asking that it can't be done of, okay, well, here's your 10-day suspension, do you agree? Yep, I agree, use not sick time, I keep saying that. Vacation time, okay, cool, and then, oh, by the way, I'm gonna take your car away. Well, when do I get it back? When I feel like it.
So, but at what point, like, say we did that, exactly that, and then a month later, something else happens, get an offender bender, whatever, the chief
Then
decides.
there's something else that happened.
Right.
That you can
but
point to and
is
say,
it
we're
always
taking.
going to be, or what if just for the benefit of the department, some kind of reassignment is necessary, but it's a month after that discipline happened? Is it going to constantly be brought up and be tied back to that discipline? Oh, you're not really doing this because it benefits the department. You're doing this to punish me because of this prior discipline. So, I mean, at what time or cutoff is there to say it's not tied to that?
Historically, there's been very few involuntary transfers out of a specialized division. And it's always been performance-based, or
Something happens.
somebody screws up in relation to discipline, which we're not saying you can't do that. We're just saying do it at the time of the discipline. If later on you're abusing sick time, and we have because we have a policy for attendance memos, if your division commander says you're abusing sick time, they're allowed to first time take the car away and off-duty assignments away for 30 days, and that's non-discipline. That wouldn't. So if he does something to get suspended, and then a month later he comes and he's abusing sick time, well, you can still take his car away. I mean, as long as there's something.
No,
else.
I agree with that. It's just I can also see the officer saying, well, it's not really the abuse of sick time. It's because I had this discipline earlier and you're
But that's why
still
we have
punishing me.
documentation. I mean, as long as it's documented, it's pretty easy. Not to mention, that would fall back to a contract grievance, right? Not.
Which is exactly what we're trying to avoid, is
Well,
having to
but
go through all that.
It would fall back to a contract grievance, which the very first part of the contract grievance is the officer has to go to the association board, which I'm not even on. I'm a member of the meet and confer team, but not the association board because I'm a lieutenant. And they have to agree that they are aggrieved and take it up. Mm-hmm. And so you've got a group of leader officers that are going to go, is this because of the discipline, or is this because you did something else? I mean, that's the first step of that. It's not like it would be appealed to an arbitrator.
Which I like that provision. I agree. I like it. And I get where you are coming from, but that, so far, we've not been authorized to agree to that provision, so.
We're simply asking a chief that ran on transparency to be transparent with disciplining his officers. That's it. Just be transparent. If you intend to take away these things, let him know up front. This could result in fewer appeals of suspensions, or because now they want to accept a lesser form of suspension that doesn't include losing some of these things. It actually gives the chief another tool in his toolbox to get the discipline that he's wanting to establish in the first place. And our officers know up front, this is the extreme of what I'm facing. Now, if we work out something else, could be less than that, but the chief can put it all on the table. Hey, man, if you're going to fight this, this is what I'm wanting to do to you. We're just asking, again, for a chief that ran on transparency to be transparent with his employees.
And as a matter of due process, I mean, the people that we deal with on a daily, when they go to court, they get their punishment, the courts are clear, that's what their punishment is. They don't go back afterwards unless something happens. And having it up front, it means more.
Yeah, I just don't see the right to have a car or to have a certain assignment relate to due process. I mean, you're talking about rights. That's what you're saying is those things are rights, and they are not. I mean, I don't have a right to this laptop if my supervisor says we need that for something else, or, hey, you're looking at, the news on your work time and we're taking away your laptop. I mean, it's the same concept.
But am I getting suspended with that on top of taking that laptop, though? I mean, that's what we're getting at here, is if punishment is outlined up front, and we know this, and this are what is being punished for up front, okay. But if it's just a laptop and I sign for that, and then 2 weeks goes by, then something happens because of that, it wasn't clear to begin with. That's all we're asking for, is clarity. That's really it.
No, I understand what you're asking for, but that's our position at this point.
So I guess I'm trying to understand the concern, because we're not, as an association, we're not wanting to limit the chief's ability to discipline. Like if he's like, dude, 10 days off, I've got to take your car for 90 days. You can't work off duty. We're not fighting that. We're just like, hey, I come back from a 10-day suspension and now the goalpost is moved, and now the goalpost has been moved again. I'm not understanding what the hang-up is with that, because this chief has been very transparent, and I don't think we're not trying to limit him disciplining. We just like, hey, this is your discipline. That way we know. And if a deal can be worked out between him and the officer, that's fine. But if not, it's in black and white. And I mean, it's going to make it easier for us as an association, because if that officer comes back and like, hey man, I don't like what happened here. Well, no, it says right there, man, you were told at the time of discipline, this was the consequence of your action. I think we're inadvertently the city's inadvertently opening it up, because we're, as an association, when it gets to us, we're gonna be like, yeah, that wasn't really spelled out. Whereas if it was spelled out at the time of discipline, it takes the pressure off us as the association, because we're going to be like, nope, it was clearly stated right there. That's between you and your attorney, but it was clearly stated at the time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get it, but it is limiting, because if there's a change in circumstances when that person comes back, the chief is limited on being able to revoke privileges, because it can always be tied back to that discipline.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think the colloquy we're having is good, but could you give me a hypothetical, or give the team a hypothetical as to what the benefit from that type of punishment would be? So if I took my 10-day suspension, what would warrant a loss of a privilege that another employee gets to enjoy if it wasn't spelled out initially?
I don't know. I mean, this is exactly what we're talking about, that this is something the chief decides. I mean, as the attorney who is not involved in y'all's hierarchy, I can't determine what is best for the department based on when you come back, how you act after the discipline, if you're, has the discipline, changed your behavior. And I know you're looking at those loss of privileges as also being disciplined, and we're looking at it, well, you've done these things, we've disciplined you, your behavior hasn't changed, and you haven't committed another violation of policy, but we are taking your car away or reassigning you to be a better fit for the department. I mean, I don't know, that's the chief's call, so I can't, it's hard for me to give you a hypothetical of what may or may not happen day to day in the department on something like that.
Let's take this to a different area that you may understand as an attorney that we deal with daily. So if I arrest Mr. X, okay, and we go to court or he gets charged with something, if he does extra stuff before he does his court date or after his court date, those are separate offenses. So the same would apply here. If we had an officer that he gets 10 days suspension, his car taken away for 90 days, and he shows back up and he's continuing to mess up, I would say that's an independent infraction that is a totally separate issue, which is a separate discipline matter. And I think that, and we're not wanting to limit that. Like if the chief, if he is handed out a discipline and he's like 10 days off and taking your car, no off duty, that's a discipline. But if that officer comes back and is continuing to cause an issue, that's a separate incident, and that issue cannot be tied to the first. That can be used for further, like we've tried to train this guy, we've tried to do something, and because the appearance is that the chief can never-endingly discipline. Like your 10 days isn't really 10 days. That's the appearance that it's coming. And I don't think that's the intent of the chief. I know him. That's not him.
I think we have to be careful using the word discipline, because there is discipline and then there is punishment. And continuing to punish someone for the same thing over and over and over, which revocation of privileges is a punishment. The Supreme Court said that change in assignment you can't just change somebody's hours and days off based on any protected class. St. Louis got in trouble for it for a female captain or a female sergeant. New captain came in and said, I don't like females in my unit. I want her moved off. She lost her car.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, yeah, I agree with you on that.
What we're saying is we don't want officers to be continually punished after discipline. You know, discipline's discipline. You have your louder hearing. The chief decides what it's going to be, or makes a deal with the officer to waive appeals and move on about your life. But then when the officer gets back, the chief can say, well, you know what, that wasn't harsh enough, so I'm going to punish you some more. Well, when's it end? When I say it does. And that's not good for anyone. That's what we're trying to prevent.
Yeah.
And we're not accusing this chief of doing that. It's just, we're trying to get this black and white. I mean, by us not putting that in there, you're going to create a headache for us as an association. I am telling you right now, I'm going to have to be dealing with this constantly if it's not in black and white. And we're going to flood you with problems in it, or not because we're trying to be vindictive, but like it's not defined. So therefore, and at some point, that's not the intent of this. The intent is like, let's just have it in black and white. And if the officer does something else after he comes back,
Something different.
it's something different. It
But
needs to be handled.
I don't think conduct always is a violation that is disciplined for, I guess. I mean, if I allow an employee to work from home, say, and they make a mistake, and I think maybe that mistake is a result of they work from home, maybe they're, not necessarily not getting their work done, but it's more relaxed. And so I say, hey, can't work from home, you gotta come back. I don't think there's a employee policy violation because they made the mistake. And I think working from home is a privilege, and I say, no, you can't.
Well,
and I'm not disciplining them.
You're probably going to either give a time, how long, hey, you got to come back for the next month, or maybe it's, hey, you've got to come back to the office until I say so. Well, that's fine, but then when the person comes into the office, they behave like a model employee, nothing else happens. But if they come into the office and they're causing disruptions in the office, and you go, man, I tell you have to come back in because you're not doing your work, now you're causing a disrupt. That's a whole nother issue. The same way that if an officer comes back after discipline and is causing further issues, that's a whole nother, it's like you just point to that and go, this is why I'm doing this. Maybe it doesn't rise to something that is a policy violation, even though there's a lot of policy
When I bring
violations.
the employee back from work from home, I don't think I have to give them a deadline or that you ever get to work from home again. Because it's a privilege, I just say, you're coming back to work, and that's it.
Right,
The
but that
problem
would be
with-
their discipline
The
in our
problem with your
case.
example, Brandon, is that, sorry, Mr. Dyson, is that this is an outlier. You have a employee that works from home. What we're talking about are benefits that every employee of the police department enjoy. And now you're saying this one person can't enjoy those privileges, those benefits anymore. Instead of your example of one person gets to work from home, you're saying if your entire workforce worked from home and you had an issue with one and you brought them back to the office, that's more equivalent to what we're talking about here, because every employee of the police department enjoy the same benefits of a take-home car once you've reached that level of seniority, working extra duty once you've reached that level of seniority, being to apply for specialized assignments once you've reached that level of seniority. That's across the board. It's no longer a case-by-case privilege. This is a blanket policy at this point that it is what happens unless you screw up. That's why it's a punishment, because you get it unless you mess up. It's not a do good and you get it. It's a you get it unless. And that's what makes this a punishment, and that's why we want it to be outlined in the beginning of a disciplinary procedure.
I hear you, but I don't know.
The only thing I was gonna
I'll have
add
a standstill on it,
is that would there ever be a situation where the opposite of that happens because of this provision? If a chief, whether it's this one or a different one, takes away all the privileges because now I have this provision that limits me in terms of doing something, I don't know, based on, like Brandon said, learning the lesson. I don't know. I mean, we don't want that to happen either. If a chief says we're going to take it all away because I don't want to be limited to what I can't or can take away later. Yeah, I don't know.
Does it make discipline more severe at the outset because you're worried about, yeah.
How we're trying to, this to me is a mutual benefit to both parties. It's neutral, because we're not trying to limit the chief's authority. And I know you say you note that or understand that. But I know you have to represent the chief's interest in this. Is he aware of how we feel on this? Have you been able to successfully communicate that? Because I don't negotiate directly with the chief.
Right, yeah.
It's just, he's asking for a big ask. He's asking for two deputy chiefs that, quite frankly, we've been able to function as a police department for almost 100 years without.
Mm-hmm. Well,
He not only is he asking for two deputy chiefs, he's asking for us to give up two tested positions that our members no longer qualify for. That's two less promotional opportunities that every sergeant in this department loses now. Mm-hmm. So not only is the chief asking for more appointments that he gets to pick whoever he wants, but he's asking us to give up promotional opportunities from within our ranks. And in return, we're asking for a lawyer at our IA interviews and to know what punishment we're looking at from the outset, and he's saying, no, that's too much.
Well, I mean, for the deputy chiefs, we've agreed on the lawyer part. But yeah, I mean, we've had hours upon hours of discussions on those provisions. I mean, especially after the subcommittee meeting. I mean, I think I knew y'all's position on that and relayed that to him. And I mean, we've just talked to him, and I think he realizes what's at stake as far as the deputy positions, yeah.
This question that may be slightly uncomfortable, and I apologize at the outset, but at what point does the responsibility of the city's bargaining team become the betterment of the city as a whole and not bargaining for one department head?
On these provisions specifically, I think we have to take into account the department head for the good of the entire city. He's the one running the department. I mean, to not take into account his position would be a detriment to the city. So,
However, as stewards of the citizens' money, I mean, if this could prevent litigation and taxpayer money going towards litigation, wouldn't it be worth it to deal with that?
litigation on what? I mean, because the officer had their car taken away? What are...
So
I mean,
officers will be.
your example, yes, if there's a discrimination because a
Well,
female officer or whatever,
Just
okay.
officers
but-
are going to be less willing to accept agreed upon suspensions. They're going to fight more. They're going to go to hearing examiners more. They're going to go to Civil Service Commission more without,
But we haven't had this provision ever, so I
and
mean...
we haven't had discipline in 10 years.
Okay, well, I mean,
I mean, the former
so
chief
now there's some
didn't,
accountability, is that what we're saying, or what?
the former chief didn't discipline anyone, so there was no opportunity for litigation. He would not discipline anyone that didn't agree with whatever it was. Now we have one that is willing to step out there. And that's, I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying he's wrong on any case that the public knows about or doesn't know about. What I'm saying is, at some point, you're going to have officers fighting back of, well, yeah, it's a day off or 3 days off that I can use sick, or did it again. I can use vacation days. But am I going to come back and the chief go, well, that's not punishment enough. You're not allowed to work off duties at the school for a year. You're not allowed to have a take-home car for a year. Where if that officer were to fight that and win it, and then the chief came back and did those things, there would probably be a lawsuit and probably a successful lawsuit for removing those privileges based on discipline that was already decided and overturned. If that makes sense. All we're asking for is that he points to it and goes, here's what you're facing. And we move on. And once we move on, if they do something wrong again, then you point to it and you document it like all good supervisors should and say, this is what they did wrong this time and this is what we're doing to correct it. It's not that we're trying to get officers to not have things taken away or be punished at all. That's not the intent. The intent is just to be upfront about what the punishment is on any discipline.
And I want to put a predicate out there too. In 143.055, uncompensated duty of police officers, which is the section that talks about using uncompensated duty. It also outlines eligibility for promotions, lost time, things like that. One of the bottom sections says when that happens, uncompensated duty retains all rights and privileges, and the term rights and privileges is listed throughout 143. So if it's something that could be taken away, I would assume it's something that also be enjoyed. So if it's something that can be enjoyed and taken away, and the code mentions privileges, having a take-home car is a privilege, right? I mean, And again, that was the predicate behind this, because if punishment's rendered, punishment's taken, and we move on with life. And that's,
How many other cities do y'all see with this provision? I mean, did this come from other cities?
No, this was something that we put in.
No, it was.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, yeah, this came from, everything I submitted to you was a I'm not smart enough to write that stuff.
I don't think this was
That
in
was a
your, what
compilation.
you originally sent me. I don't think this.
This was, I'm pretty
provision
sure
was in
this is
there.
in the San Marcos Police Department.
That might have been where I got it.
Fairly certain it's in San Marcos. Because I'm fairly certain Chief Standard just sad he left Abilene, because Abilene doesn't have it and San Marcos does.
I'll also point out that can anything be called a privilege if we advertise that it's something an officer gets at hiring? If we put it on our website, you get a take-home car. That's not a privilege. That's an advertised right. And right, wrong, or indifferent, we've been advertising that kind of stuff for a long time.
yeah. Along with part-time opportunities, like you can work the schools, you can get cash jobs, things like that. That's what we're actively recruiting people for as well. And that's kind of where our confusion is on this, is it either is or it isn't. It's something that I can enjoy or something that I can't. Something could be, if it's something that can be taken from me, I would assume that it's something that I should be enjoying like everybody else. But in connection with a punishment, and then it happens without something new happening, it's difficult.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think we're kind of at a.
I'd also point out that this is a non-monetary, there's no cost to this. Not a cost to anyone, not to the chief, not to the city, or anybody else.
Can I do a quick time check? Does anybody need to leave in the next 30 minutes to an hour? If we could caucus. So we'll caucus.
I mean, are there other items that we need to?
Well, we do need to go back to agenda item 6, no, agenda item 4 at some point. I guess for what it's worth, in terms of the comments made for the deputy chiefs, the SRO pay, that was all understandable, and we're good with that. To include the contract language in terms of when bargaining begins as far as the budget process. We'll have to come up with some language to present on that, but aside from that, I think agenda item 4 we needed to go back to. The comment for United Way, yeah. Sure.
United Way. An employee's participation in United Way is voluntary. It's a reflection of their own values and priorities. A contribution is something we provide, I do without, so that somebody else can have something. We don't view the council's provision of a day off for a certain level of contribution as a trade or exchange. And so we would encourage employees to participate in United Way based on their own values and view it likewise. It's not a trade or an exchange. Employees' contribution reflects their values, and the council's provision for a day off for a certain contribution reflects their values. And so we don't think that making it an overtime topic is appropriate.
That's fair enough.
Okay, so if we could caucus, that'd be great. 5:30? Okay. We will call the meeting back to order at 6:11. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. We made that counteroffer that started that whole conversation. And right now, that's the only thing we're sure of. If we're going to reopen the discussion about all those provisions, we're not going to be able to have that discussion today. We're not going to be able to achieve position on those things today. And so we're going to need to take time and consult with the chief and see what combination of provisions he thinks allows him to manage. And that was a concern for us because we were hoping to get pretty far along today. We think that kind of puts a bump in our calendar also. We think that if we could achieve consensus on those items we discussed previously, we could keep the calendar moving because we're under a tight squeeze to get to 10-1 raises. But if we can't get an agreement, we're struggling to get 10-1 raises implemented. And so, again, key part, that last counteroffer was the sure stance we've got. If we need to come up with another, we're going to need to spend time with the chief. And we just can't get that done today. So we wanted you to make you aware of that. We'd like to move without delay and open a conversation about the calendar. And I'm not sure where you were going to take us from here, Veronica.
Yeah, so initially, the item we skipped, agenda item number 4, approval of 5% increases. In order to get that accomplished, today needed to happen. The deadline for the 21st council agenda, is that this Friday or the 17th? It's got to be this Friday. Yeah. There's no time for me to even post another meet and confer agreement, a meet and confer meeting by this Friday, since it's a public meeting. So at the earliest, it would be sometime next week, impacting the budget amendment that was set to go on the 21st for the second reading. So we need to talk about, I guess, timeline.
So I guess my suggestion would be is that we will agree to no less than 5%. So that would that satisfy?
Say it again, Noel, I'm sorry.
That we would agree to no less than 5%. Would that satisfy what you've done and the work that?
So coming to an agreement on that section today, I believe the issue is that we don't have an agreed upon contract.
Right, and I mean, our current contract is effective through December 31st of this year. So if we're agreeing to essentially supersede part of the current contract for
Which is what we've done the last 2 years. It's always been a 10-1.
No, I understand, but
The extra 3 months on there is so that if we have issues, we don't have a contract lapse like would have happened now, where, oh, we're out of contract, and now that's a mess. It was never an intention to run this contract to the end of the year. It was always our intention to have a new contract implemented by 10/1. It just didn't happen.
Well, and I think our position is, let's say you agree to the 5%, and we're talking about implementing that as soon as and then awarding some back pay to backdate those pay raises to 10/1.
So with civil service, you can't do back pay. You can do signing bonus, which is what we did the first year, where everybody got an equal dollar amount.
We'd have to work that out. Our intent is not to forego or short you in any way, but we are up against it for a signed agreement. I guess somebody didn't like what you were saying. I think the key is we're not trying to short you. We're trying to make good on that, but we are up against what appears to be a calendar issue today.
Yes, sir. And we definitely understand and appreciate y'all's time crunch, but as a bargaining committee, we don't have the authority to approve a partial contract. We would still have to take 5% to the membership and say, hey, guys, we need you to sign a partial contract that would agree to the 5% raise, but we're still working on other stuff. And these guys know their membership better than I do, but it seems like that would be a pretty hard sell, especially when the city's first proposal was, hey, take 5% and let's not do anything else at all anyway. So it kind of has the feeling like, hey, this is what the city wanted was 5% and we walk away. And now that's kind of where we're at now at the deadline of, hey, agree to 5% and then we'll work out the rest of it. Kind of understand what I'm kind of getting at?
I think we're agreeing with you. I think we're saying we want the total contract worked out.
Yeah, yes, we're absolutely agreeing with you. I guess the concern that we have, and I'm sure you have the same concern, is that we can't get this done in order for everybody to realize their 5% increase at the last check in October, which is when you would normally see that. We don't mind, like Michael said, when we come to this agreement and it all gets voted on and approved, that we go back to 10/1 and pay that however we have to pay it, or however it's been done in the past, whether it's a stipend or something like that. But we can't accomplish a signed agreement before we have to manually implement things for the 10/1 raises.
And I think we're all in agreement on that. I know from the first contract that we did when we restarted Meet and Confer, it was kind of the same thing because we finally got an agreement in January, and I know then we realized that you can't back pay civil service employees for time already worked. And so we had to do a signing bonus, more or less, of equal, lieutenant gets the same as the rookie officer. This is how much every member that's affected by it gets the same. You take up whatever that salary amount is for that October, then divide it among everybody equally.
Yeah, I guess
and I
we
think
just,
that's the way that it has to end up
So I guess,
being done.
what are y'all needing from us in order for y'all to feel comfortable with y'all's budget issue and trying to make things work by?
Well, let's take the calendar out of the picture. Well, I think what we're saying is we need to spend time with Travis and help him conjure for us the recipe, the mixture of terms that we can consent to. We can't do that today. So let's throw the calendar back in. We want to honor what we expect are your desires to have those raises effective and paid 10/1. In order to do that, what we're saying is we've got to achieve consensus today. And the only consensus we're authorized to is that last counteroffer we gave you. And so we want you to, we came to that realization upstairs, and we said, we gotta make sure they understand that we've been, in our minds, shooting for implementation with the pay 10-1. And if we're gonna have to spend more time working on this, the likelihood that we'll be able to get it done with a 10-1 payment is remote. And so the question becomes,
I think to be able to, for membership and explaining the situation, we understand that, there may need to be a bonus situation or whatever, and that it won't be effective. They won't see the raise immediately. But getting the language worked out is worth it to us to wait for that. Is that kind of what you're asking?
We think we can get the 10-1 implementation done.
The only way that that's going to happen is if what we counteroffered with earlier is agreed upon. And I mean, we will commit the time to continue to work on it as long as you understand that officers will not see that raise on the last check in October, because we're continuing to work on this. We're going to miss that deadline. So we want to make sure that that expectation is clear, or the counteroffer that we brought forward earlier, if we agree upon that today, I don't even know that we can have another meeting with all the language I mean, I'd have to have it by Friday. There's no way, I can't schedule a meeting.
Well, let's walk through that. Is that achievable? They've got a time frame that they work on, because you've got to have an election, right? And then we've got a time frame that we work on, and ours involves what?
Ours involves creating the language that is agreed upon, which is really Brandon, and then scheduling another meet and confirm meeting to review that, sign it. But I think an election has to happen for y'all before that even, so.
Which I think you are able to do that pretty quick, right? I mean, we did the electronic election or.
Oh, okay.
Who is authorized on our side to sign? Who signs for the city?
Well, as for like a tentative agreement, yeah, Veronica would.
Has she already gotten that authorization? Who authorizes her to sign?
Well,
I think the meeting provisions that we have,
Well, if we were buying widgets from these guys, the council would delegate city manager to negotiate and execute. They would.
yeah, but it's all, I mean, it's subject to council approval.
It
just
still has to
like
go to
their
council as
election
well.
is. I mean,
the agreed
Okay,
upon
well, that's
agreement
why-
has to go to council.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
So we sign an agreement, and we've still got to go to council before it's effective. So
Right.
it cannot be effective before 10/15. Is that true?
That is true.
And so the only way we could satisfy our side of it would be to jump through all the hoops and then have a special council meeting before you have a payroll implementation deadline. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay, that sounds like we can't get that done.
No.
Okay, forget what I said. This is what I'm saying. We need time with Travis to work this through. This will delay those 10-1 implementation timeframe. We don't think that has an effect on our commitment to pay that full amount, whatever it is, and however we got to do it. It just delays the implementation of the raises.
You died too.
We're dead. So, with that in mind, that's all right, Brian. I didn't.
Okay, so I think with all of that said, did you have anything additional?
No, I just want to get clarity on the calendar, make sure we're on the same page.
That was going to be my point, just to look at calendars while we've got everybody in the room.
For the next meeting? For this next meeting?
Yes, we're meeting Confer next meeting. I don't, and it would still take a couple of council meetings
After that.
for
And
approval.
You have to do 3 business days for this meeting?
Mhm.
Or really next Wednesday?
How many council meetings do we have in November? Is that just
We
one?
do have 2 in November.
2 in November. So that's what I'm going to shoot for.
I think she's trying to figure out calendars.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is going to take, if you combine the approved agreement that council has to approve and the budget amendment that would have to happen for the pay plan, that takes 2 readings.
You've already done 1 reading on that budget amendment, so she's been kind of jumping to try to be prepared for what comes. So she's already had 1 reading, she just needs a second reading.
Do we have to start that over since we don't have a signed agreement by the time we take the second reading?
I'm sorry. Brandon, do we?
Trying to make sure childcare is.
I know, I get it. The question is, can we table the second reading as is indefinitely, like, till we get the agreement signed?
Or do we have to start over with the first reading again?
Since it's an ordinance, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, we don't do it on consent, they need to pull it off and table the second reading, but yeah, I mean, I think we can do that.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you have something else on there that can't wait?
Oh,
We'll figure it out. We don't have to figure it out
I
here.
think they both could wait. I think they both could wait.
First meeting is on November,
4th. 4th and 18th.
I'm thinking it's going to have to be November 18th. We've got TML, 1 whole week. So I anticipate that we could have it all done by the council meeting on November 18th. Meeting, we would have to schedule at least 1 more meet and confer meeting. And then you all have to have time to present that to your membership and get approval. So that deadline, we'd have to have everything done by November 7th for the 18th.
I think we should plan to be done with council at least by the second meeting in November, because we've only got 1 in December if we've got to fall back.
Yeah, we've got to have it done in November. So that means I would try to schedule a meet and confirm meeting by end of next week, if possible, beginning of the week of the 20th, maybe, at the latest. What is today, the 8th? 13th is a holiday.
Other than Wednesday afternoon next week, we're free, we're open.
Other than Wednesday, okay. What does the 16th in the afternoon look like for everyone? If we do a 1 to 4 again on the 16th.
You don't have very many free days left, so. Thought you meant you were bringing the wine.
Okay,
I'm available Thursday afternoon.
Thursday afternoon. So if we can pencil that in, I'll post. And we'll do what we have to do in the meantime. So the 16th at 1 PM. That's what I plan on posting for. Does that work?
Yeah, that works. One thing when y'all were talking about the additional things cobbling together, without another carrot of sorts for officers, I think the only thing that we would be open to that we weren't open to earlier is under section 16 of the felony conviction or T-Cole license revocation, but not with the pretrial diversion that was asked for in there.
You're saying that's the only thing you would be open to?
Without another carrot, yeah.
Okay. I mean, again, we need to spend time with the chief, but
Yeah.
I think when we met, when we had the consensus on all those provisions, I mean, at the very end, we qualified that it is subject to change based on the other negotiations, which is happening right now. So likewise, that'll probably change some of our positions on those sections.
Did you say section 16?
13.
13.
The felony conviction or T-Cole license revocation or suspension.
Okay.
The one under final conviction of felony or disposition.
Brandon, if I'm hearing your statement you just made correctly, you're preparing us for the chief to perhaps strike some things that, as of right now, we seem to have an agreement on, that the chief may come back with other strikes in our language?
I don't know if it's the chief or in these other provisions that we're talking about, but qualified it with, based on how the rest of the negotiations go, these sections are subject to change, which is exactly what you guys did. So yeah, absolutely, it may change.
I mean, also be aware that the only reason that those changed is because additional things were asked for of the membership. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
And I think y'all
likewise,
asked
if you
for
wanted to make
additional.
two tested deputy chief positions, then
Well-
we wouldn't be asking.
Well,
for
but
it.
I mean, likewise, if the chief or whoever decides to take the red pen back out to our proposed disciplinary language, which in reality is pretty much the only ask we have. I mean, there are 3 asks that the city just brought that we would need to reevaluate if the red pen comes back out. Because, we were very agreeable to 2 of the 3 with the understanding that, the discipline would be the issue. But if we're having to reevaluate everything because a red pen finds its way back out into our disciplinary language, then, we may not be quite as amicable to the 3 proposals that were made by administration either.
I think that's understandable. Yeah. I did have one request for the purpose of videoing and everything, so they could set up 1:30 start time on the 16th instead of 1. Okay.
I have a question. Sorry. One of the things we've been talking about is that sick leave business. I think we anticipate achieving consensus on a solution which is revenue or expenditure neutral. What is our ability to have a contract which does not address that, but leave the opportunity to address that, specifying the contract that we could bring that provision back for an amendment to the contract at a later date? In other words, I'm trying to say, get us to an executed contract if we can't get all that worked out, if we spend all our time working on this other stuff. A, is that something you guys would consider? And B, is that achievable from a legal perspective?
We have the reopener provisions for limited.
I mean, there's nothing preventing it. We would obviously prefer it to be, because then we don't have to come back and do another vote and those sorts of things. And then it's a selling point to the membership up front of, hey, because
Okay.
otherwise it's, you get your 5% and,
Do we want to authorize some communication between finance and their team? Some exchange of information or something to,
You've communicated with Jonathan before, right?
yeah, I think so.
Spreadsheets and stuff
Yeah.
like that?
okay, we'll try to get that moving.
Yeah, and I'm fine with going back and forth as far as looking at things so that it's not, well, so that it's not something that's so huge and new at another meeting where we've got to take a ton of time just to look at it
Right.
and dissect it. Hopefully we
like
can do that ahead
simplicity.
of time.
Like it's simple and clean and understandable
Yeah.
and effective.
Okay. Anything else?
I'll still make the motion that we are allowed to bring new things because there may be something new that comes up at the next meeting.
Yeah, I don't think we were opposed to that. I would second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Okay, that moves us to adjournment.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second again.
Aye,
Any-
aye. Captain?
All in favor? Yes, okay. Meeting adjourned at 6:37. Thank you.